Hello, Blazor fans. How are you all doing today? See, we've got some friends from our Sofia office. Здравейте, приятели. We're gonna get started here in just a minute. We're doing the Blazor book content this week. We did a bit yesterday. We're gonna continue today. We're gonna do some of the harder bits from the book. We've gotten down into the end chapters where we talk about JavaScript Interop, and JavaScript Interop is quite interesting. It's a really cool way to interact with the JavaScript side of the web while still working in the Blazor side of things in C#. And I've got some pretty cool demos that we'll do today. We'll also do we will do some demos possibly next week with the Telerik UI for Blazor. So there's a demo that's in the book that is clearly Telerik UI for Blazor, and then I have the ability to do it without it. So I thought I'd do it both ways to show just how cool we can theme our apps with a little bit of JavaScript Interop to toggle a dark and light theme. And we'll do it with Bootstrap first, and then we'll do it with Telerik UI for Blazor next week and see how it works out. Unless we have time today, I don't think we'll have time. It's kind of a involved process, so we'll see how things go. But that's what the agenda is. And as always, if you have questions, please feel free to ask them as we go along. We're here to have fun, so things may break, disasters may happen, but we are going to have a good time. We are going to learn something. The project I have open right now is on my GitHub page. This coincides with the free, absolutely free Telerik E-Book, Blazor E-Book. It's available at telerik.com. I'll post a link to that here, or actually there is a link below in the channel, and just click on the banner. That'll get you the free ebook. If you want to check out the GitHub project, let's get that link up for you. If you go to GitHub, you will find, if you go to my GitHub page, you'll find the link there. There it goes. So this is up on my GitHub page under Blazor eBook, the Blazor eBook examples project. So this is what we're going to be working on. I've already got it loaded up here in my IDE in Visual Studio. I'll show you what we've done so far, and then we'll pull up the ebook as well, and we will look at that. Let's get some Chrome browser up here so we can take a look at the GitHub repo. This is the ebook examples. We've got a book server and a book WASM. These are just server-side and client-side versions of the same project. I'm working in the WASM side today, and then I'll just copy over that project to the server side. When I'm done, it's pretty much the same code on the client and the server, so we'll be doing that. And again, you can find that on GitHub. Links in the chat description there. Eagle, everything is great. Thanks for asking. And anytime, man. B Unit is really cool. So we've got Eagle Hansen in the chat room. If you haven't had a chance to check out B Unit, there's actually a show up on my YouTube channel where me and Eagle talked about it before it was actually B Unit, but it's still good content. Let's see if I can grab that for everybody too. So it should be up in here under my channel. Hey, Chris DeMar's in the chat room as well. Hey, Chris, how's it going, man? Things are well here. We've been under our little isolation for, I think we're going on 6 weeks now. So we've stepped out for groceries twice in those 6 weeks, and that's it. So everybody here is doing really well. Let me see. We talked about component testing. Where is that? I know we've got a video up here, Eagle. There it is. There we go. So this was things there may be some breaking changes from this video and what's out there now, but it'll give you a gist of what exactly is in Eagle's unit testing framework. So that's a pretty cool video. You got your order of beer yesterday. Good stuff, man. Scott Addy, welcome. Welcome. Isolation has felt like 2 years. I was looking back, like the last event I did was Code Mash in January 7th through like the 14th. And it feels like an absolute eternity ago. Yeah, you don't want to pull out the credit card on the stream, man. That's not a good thing. That's nothing good can come from that. I remember one time I was in Seattle and I was at I think it was Build, and I'm sitting in my hotel room. It is like 11 o'clock Pacific time, and I'm getting a text from my bank that somebody is ordering pizza in New York, which would have been like 2 a.m. And I'm like, yeah, that's not me. That's not me. But it wasn't my fault. I wasn't streaming my my credit card info. So it can happen even without a screw up, man. So it's all good. They'll figure it out if anything bad happens. So what we're going to do today, we've got the ebook. Let's see, I've got a private link here because I've got the ebook on my drive already. You can grab it again, just look straight down and you will find it. It is a, let's put this in Edge. The free ebook is down in below my face right now. If you scroll down, you'll find a banner to it. You can download it for absolutely nothing. It is totally free. Whoops, go back. And we're going to be looking at the JavaScript interoperability section. And we're going to do the demos that are in here. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's in the book. Spoiler alert. We'll talk about what exactly the IJS runtime is, what some of these invoke async functions are and what they can do. But the idea is you go to like a website or a really good app these days, like let's say Slack, and you have the ability to swap. Oh, even the OSs have this these days. What am I talking about? So like on Windows even, you can have a dark mode, light mode toggle. And we can build this into our apps really, really easy with a little bit of JavaScript interop. And I'll tell you why we need JavaScript to do this in just a second. So the first thing we need to do is look at how a Blazor app is rendered. The examples in the ebook are done in TellerQI for Blazor. Today, we will do it in Blazor with Bootstrap. And next week or later today, we will do it in TellerQI for Blazor and check out what the differences are there. Mainly it's going to be, we have a lot more theming options, but I wanted to show both ways. So let's go to the ebook project that I have here. And if we look, there is an index HTML file. So we have a HTML file that is basically the wrapper for our application. It bootstraps the app. So when we load this app, the app will run and it'll hit this, or this HTML page will run. It'll hit this script and that will trigger the Blazor framework to start initializing and render. When it renders, it's going to find this element, app. And it will replace the guts, where it says loading, with all of our app HTML that is rendered by the framework. So everything that happens in our Blazor application happens inside of this app tag. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to have two CSS files that live up here. There's already one up here. We're going to take this one, this bootstrap min.css, and we're going to toggle it with another bootstrap CSS file that has a dark theme. Okay. Now, if our app lives here and our links live up here, then how do we access those with Bootstrap? Or sorry, with Blazor? Because Blazor is living down here and it has only access to things inside of this app tag. So what we're going to have to do is write a tiny bit of JavaScript that's going to go up into the head and find this link and toggle it, toggle the value of the href attribute for us. So that's the project. That's what we're doing today. So first things first, we have bootstrap min CSS. That is in our application by default. So that's included with the Blazor framework when we get it. And Mr. Christomars is not a fan of Bootstrap, but I tell you what, I know Bootstrap is like the Comic Sans of the internet these days, but if you need a starting point and you need a level ground for everybody to start working at, it's better than nothing. Trust me. What you don't want is people that don't know CSS very well trying to write CSS. You want to give them a good starting point. We've got some really killer folks we've got several themes. So this is, if we look at the progress bits, we got theme builder, and we'll look at this next in the next iteration of this idea. But we've got themes upon themes upon themes, and we could start with the default. We can go bootstrap, we can go material, and we can theme all the things. So we've got a pretty well-rounded base of starting points for our components. So what we're going to do today, though, we're going to sidebar a little bit, even out of the book, and we're going to go, I think it's boot swatch, because people need really easy entry points for stuff, I believe. People need to be able to do some, rapid application development, and not everybody has the luxury of having a designer on their team. If you need one, hire Mr. Chris DeMars. Looks like he's ready to hit the ground running. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this cyborg theme, because it looks like a dark theme, and we're gonna use the CSS from this. And let's see what kind of install options we have here. I think we may just have a download button for this. Let's see, or are these up on a CDN or anything like that? What do we got? I'm trying to remember how we get these. I need to go back a screen, I think. There we go. Yeah, I can download it. We have Sass. We have just straight CSS. I'm just going to grab the min version, and we'll go ahead and show that in our folder here. I'm going to copy this. So this is just for the book example. This isn't like a totally best practice like way of managing your themes or anything like that. We're just doing something easy, just as a sample to show the JavaScript interop. The JS interop is really the focus of this, not like CSS best practices and all those type of things. We're going to just grab that. We're not really worried about front-end dependency management, all those things either. And I may need to rename this file as I paste it. So I'm going to put it in root just for a second, just to make sure there's no conflicts, and there would have been. I'm going to call this one, let's see, what did I use in the book? Do I even call it out in the book? I think I just call it dark. In the book, it is light and dark. So let's do that. We'll call this one dark, and we'll call this other one light, and we will move dark into this bootstrap folder. All right, and we'll go ahead and change this because I just renamed this file, so we'll change this here as well. So this is going to be light CSS, and that should not affect our app yet. So let's toggle this over. Let's do a Control F5. Take a look at it, see what we've done so far. And good, nothing has broken. That's the desired outcome so far, is we didn't break anything. Now let's inspect the page. What we're going to do is kind of demonstrate what the JS interop is going to have to do. And we're going to go into this head element, and oh, it's still using bootstrap min somehow. Let me make sure I loaded the right one. We've got, it didn't. We've got book server and book WASM. I want book WASM. We'll save this. Let's close the browser and reload that. Reload that app. Make sure we have the right app we're working with here. All right, now we can inspect the page, and we will look at the head attribute here. If I can click the right section of the page, and let's scroll this down a little, and we can see right here we have bootstrap light CSS. So this is our initial bootstrap min CSS we renamed, and I'm going to try to hack away at this. Come on, there we go. So what I want to do is just swap this out and say dark, and then there we go, we have a dark theme. And for the most part, everything got themed here. I think it looks decent. I mean, this is just something we grabbed off the shelf and just ran with, so not too bad. Looks like some of the, I'm not sure some of the buttons themed. Or no, that's the proper color. Yeah, that's what they look like. It's not too drastic of a theme change, but you can tell it's a light and dark theme. So we've got a little bit of a theme change going. That's good. What we need to do is we need to create a theme swap component. And what I want it to look like is just a simple button, really. And we've got this, and I need to remember I put this in another browser, not another tab. What we want to do is create this little UI piece here. So we have a button that we can click, and we'll toggle dark mode and light mode. I don't think I'll be able to use that icon. We'll see if we can find another one. That's the Telerik UI for Blazor icon system there. So we won't have that, but we can do something similar. And again, these are definitely Telerik UI for Blazor, and we will do those in a little bit. So I'm going to come into my shared here, and I'm going to say add Razor component, and then let's go back to the book. I want to kind of keep these named the same because I want to upload these and have them available for people so they can build these things along with the book and check their work. I don't see theme. I think I just call it theme chooser in here. Yeah, so let's go ahead and create a theme chooser dot razor. So this is going to be theme chooser dot razor, and they still haven't fixed this bug. This is a Visual Studio bug, so we have to exit and come back. And there's our theme chooser. I'm going to replace the code with what's in the book. And again, I don't have the Telerik UI for Blazor in here. We'll do that example later. So we're going to have to do a little translation. And we've got a Telerik button. And we're going to take the Telerik button, and we're just going to replace that with a regular button for now. So button, on click, and when we on click, we're going to swap themes. And a lot of this stuff is Telerik related, so I got to remove all that. This is nice features that we have in the Telerik UI that we don't have here, like icons and setting the theme for the button easily. So we need to set this as a class is button button primary. If Chris is still around, he's probably cringing because Bootstrap. It's a good tool, man. Sorry. Let's see. And then this is going to have a little theme swap type of thing to it. So what we do is we render a div, just gives us a little box around here, and it says click here to switch themes. We have our button. It is bound to this task that will do the theme swap for us. And what it does currently is just changes the theme name in the button. Now, this isn't going to do anything with our actual theme yet, obviously. All it's doing is toggling some text. So we click the button, it flips a bit. There, that's a little easier to see. It flips this bit is dark. And then we have a read-only property called setTheme. And if is dark, then it changes from the text dark. And if it's already dark, then it'll swap to the light theme. So this will toggle because of this swap theme function right here. So we're going to just flip the bit, and by flipping the bit, we flip the words dark and light. Let's see here. Eagle says you have to see this. It looks like a CSS only way to choose themes. Prefer color schemes. I'll have to check that out. Let's see what this is. All right, so there's something built into the browser to set your theme preferences, it looks like. I haven't seen this yet. Oh, that's interesting. So, prefers color scheme, CSS media feature. I wonder what browsers support this. So let's see. Obviously not IE. Samsung Internet. Who uses that? Jeez. All right, so anything Blazor works in, this would work. So there's actually a media query that tells us whether our OS, I guess, is set to dark or light theme. Is that where it's getting it from? Where does the user set this? This is really cool though, Eagle. I had no idea that this existed. Yeah, I wonder if it pulls it from the OS somewhere. Requested the system. What is the system in this context like? Is this Windows, the Windows theme setting? That would be awesome. So I have to check that out, read more up on it. A lot of people use the Samsung browser. They shouldn't. They should not. All right. I've had people ask me why, or a person at least ask me why Blazor wasn't working, and it's because they were using that shoddy browser from Samsung. I'm gonna dump on it. I am. Sorry, but if you make something that's terrible, I'm gonna dump on it. So, hey, you know. Let's see. So we've got our theme here that we can swap, and this doesn't really do anything yet. We're just gonna put it on the page and check it out though. It didn't last time I checked it, and that was a while ago, so maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but it just completely didn't support WebAssembly. And on top of that, just in regular browsing mode, like just regular websites, it was just terribly slow. So I'm going to poo on it.
I'm going to go ask directions to our next huge embarrassing failure.
You're a huge embarrassing failure.
It's a huge embarrassing failure, is what I'm trying to say, if you didn't catch on. All right, so Samsung people are now mad at me, I'm sure, but we're going to go ahead and put a theme swapper theme chooser on our page. I said we're going to have fun. I'm having fun. I don't know if you're having fun, but I'm having fun. So there's our themes swap component. If we click, it says dark mode, light mode, and this is actually displaying the opposite of the current mode. So it will start with, let's see, switch themes to light mode to dark mode. Maybe this might be reversed. We may have to initialize this as a different bit. So I'm not sure how that turns out in the book. We'll check that out in a minute. I don't hate JavaScript. JavaScript is fine. Everything is fine. It's all fine.
They ask you how you are. You just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine. You just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Everything's fine, folks. It's all good. All right, so we need JavaScript. I'm not going to hate on JavaScript. Chris is like, I hate JavaScript. Me, I hate it. They suck. There's not the language. I like the language. It has its uses. There's a point where you hit a wall, I think, and then it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I won't get into it. Here, talk amongst yourselves. You guys have at it. You all have that debate in chat while I code. It's not going to be a productive chat, I'm telling you. All right, so we have our dark and light theme. We're going to go into the index page again where those things exist. And I want to go to this link up here, and I'm going to give it an ID. We need to target this thing, so it has to have an ID of some kind. I'm not sure if I outlined that in here. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to give it an ID of theme. So we're going to call that theme so we can find it. That's our theme. And then back to the ebook, we're going to get into the root here, www root. We're going to add a new item. This is going to be a JavaScript file. And I don't know why I do these things. I need the plugin that just gives you an empty file. It's just so much easier. There may actually be one built in. I just don't know. Is there just a straight like add file these days, or do I have to download that plugin for it? This is going to be theme chooser.js. So we're adding a JavaScript file. So we've given our link for our CSS an ID number or an ID value, and then we've created a JavaScript file, and this is going to be our JavaScript. So anytime we use the JavaScript interop, we need to attach to the window scope. And that is how Blazor can find our bit of JavaScript. Hello there, folks that are just joining us. We are building a Blazor application with JavaScript interop based on an ebook, and we're doing a theme swap, so we can have a light mode and dark mode theme that we can swap at a click of a button. So thanks for joining us if you're just joining us. And what we need to do is we need to add a scope to the window, and inside of that scope we'll have all the functions that we plan to execute from our Blazor app. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a function called setTheme, and we're going to pass in the name of the theme that we're going to be using. Now, I will explain all of this code. It looks like a lot. It's not bad. What it's going to do, and it all came in commented out. So let's walk through this as we uncommented it. And we've got a variable called newLink. So we're going to say let newLink equal document.createLink. So this is going to new up a link element with no attributes on it. So this is basically saying we want one of these. Okay, so it's going to build one of those, and it's going to be called newLink. And then we're going to set the ID. Here, let's keep that pseudocode in there for a second. It's hard to see with my theme I have baked in here. It'll cause some errors, but we'll leave it in for a minute. So it's going to look like this. We're going to say, give me a new one of those. The next line says, give me that link, but add an ID and set the ID to theme. So that's what the next line of JavaScript does. The next one says, give it a rel attribute of style sheet. And you can probably imagine what that does by now. Just following the convention that we already have. So it is building this via code. Whoops. Rel equals style sheet, and so on. Okay, this is what's happening. This is what the several lines of JavaScript code that we have here are doing. So finally, it will add the type of reference it is, and then build the ref attribute, which is our path to our theme. Okay? Simple enough. The next thing it has to do is, now we've got two of those, or potentially going to have two of those links. We can't have two links with the same ID with two different href attributes. So we're going to go into the head of the document. So this is going to be our head. We're going to say document get element by tag ID head. And it's going to be the 0 index because there's only one head in the document. And then we'll call head query selector. We're going to grab the theme link and we'll remove it. So basically what this is saying, we'll do this side by side here so I can draw some pictures. Make this as clear as I possibly can. I like visuals. They help me think through problems. So let's see if I can zoom in without it being too far in, and there. All right, perfect. So I've got my little drawing tool here. So this portion of code right here will create a brand new one of these right here. So it's going to create a new link with an ID of theme and set our href. Okay. This line of code right here is going to go in and axe this. It's going to take it out. It's going to remove that. This final line of code is going to go in and put this link into the head now that the other one has been removed. So that's all that JavaScript does. Very simple stuff. And it's going to do it from, it's going to pass in the name of the theme and just append that inside of the href attribute. So it's going to say css/dark.css or css/light.css. So all it's doing is toggling that link. Very easy stuff. Now, looks like I have a redundant wrapper on this function. And because JavaScript is JavaScript, it never let me know that I had pasted that in, and there was 2 of them. So that's one of the reasons I like C#. Not saying I don't like JavaScript, I'm just saying that's one of the reasons I like C#. So I would have got an error already trying to write that. So there we go, that's all fixed. Again, this reference is in the ebook. It's in the ebook right here. So I'm sure there's things that I talk about in the ebook I haven't talked about here. It's still good to read. The next thing I need to do is I need a link to the JavaScript that we just created. So I'm going to go up into my that may be in the wrong file here. It should be index.html. Let's do a little tab bankruptcy so I don't open the wrong thing. Close all but this. And then we're just going to add a reference to that JavaScript right there. How much work was it to create the light and dark CSS? So it was actually super easy. So I went to bootswatch.com and there's all your themes. So I just grabbed Cyborg. You could grab any of these themes that you like and toggle between any or all of them. You could download all of them and put them in your application and have a drop-down list that you pick from instead of just a simple toggle. Have at it. That's your weekend hackathon right there. Just make every theme ever. Just download them all and put a drop-down box and extend what you're learning here today. So we're gonna put that in our head of our document, so we have access to it from C#. And then just for reference there, Curious Drive, when I downloaded them, I just renamed them dark and light just to make them easily accessible. So it's not some really long thing like bootstrap.min.css /dark. Whatever. Just to keep things really simple, I just renamed them. We've got our JS file. Now we need to go back to our theme chooser and we need to wire up the JavaScript bits. So let's go over to the book and we'll take a look at how to do that. So we already have the toggle of the light and dark text. which is nice, but it doesn't toggle any theme yet. What we really need to do is call out to JavaScript and put this line of code in. We also need a reference to, you could see that lighting up. We need to inject the JS runtime, IJS runtime, JS. So this is saying, hey Bootstrap, or sorry, I keep calling Blazor Bootstrap. Hey Blazor, give me an IJS runtime and call it JS. Down here, we're going to await that JS runtime. We're going to call invoke async. There's no return here, so it's invoke void async. We're going to call theme chooser, which is our scope, or our namespace. And then we're going to call set theme, and we'll do this side by side again. I think that helps everybody with understanding where exactly all this code is and how it's running. So let's do this side by side. We'll learn this all together. And let's see, let's pull the zoom out. And there we go. We have our diagram again. So we're going to call in the JS runtime. I need to scoot that code over here. Let's start our little sketch session again. There, I think that's a good view of it. All right. So we've got our button. We're going to click swap theme. It's going to call this JavaScript runtime and say, go look at the scope theme chooser, which is right here, window.themeChooser. And then it's going to say, call the setTheme method or function. There's the setTheme function. And then it's going to pass in the theme name, which is going to be light or dark, one of these two. And then that's going to get passed here to this theme name variable, which is written out here. So this will create CSS / dark or light CSS. And that's going to inject that into the head of the document and remove the old reference. Now, I don't recall having to set, I might need to look at how my CSS files are named in the book, or I may need to call two lowercase on that string. So there may be a small error, and I don't know if it's in, let's see. See how I named my links here. Those are lowercase. So it's, I guess because it's a file system thing, it's going to be okay. I think it doesn't matter what OS we're on. It should just work, but we will try it and see what happens. Just the lowercase, uppercase thing might be a problem. We'll see. So we want to switch themes, and there's an error that occurred. So something has gone wrong. Let's see what it says. It couldn't find themechooser.js, and I think I see the error already. When I added themechooser to index, it was supposed to be under the JS folder, and I forgot to make a folder. So it's just a simple pathing error. We'll do new folder, JS, just for organization. We'll move it into there, like that. Yes, it's okay. We'll save that. Let's go ahead and close these windows out just to make sure we get a fresh copy running. Do Control F5. I have a habit of Control F5ing these things. But you can debug now, and you could see something's broken. Something's not right. So it looks like it's either that naming thing I talked about, and somehow I didn't catch it in the book. Let's try that first and foremost. So it looks like we might need lowercase, and nope, that didn't seem to fix it. Aborted. 404 light CSS. Something with pathing again still. So let's double check our paths and make sure everything's okay. So it's going to be /CSS. Oh, that's site. My bad. /CSS bootstrap. That's what it is. Okay, in the book, it looks like I don't have it under a bootstrap folder. I want to make this as close to the book as possible. Where is this thing? I want to make it close to the book as possible, so I put them in the root CSS folder. We'll go ahead and move that. So this is the problem. I have them under here, and they're not supposed to be there. They're supposed to be right here. In the example in the book, I am using Bootstrap along with these dark and light themes. That I can explain later. Wouldn't make a whole lot of sense right now because we're not using the Telerik stuff with it. All right, so this should work again. You can see it's hard-coded. The path is hard-coded here. That might be a place where there's room for improvement if this wasn't just a simple example. We should be able to refresh this. There we go. We're getting there. Something went awry over here. Not sure what that's all about. But our sidebar disappears. So, that's a new one. I haven't seen that before. So I'll have to figure out why this all disappears. Yeah, I'm going to have to inspect those menu items and see what's happening. So in our sidebar, the items are there. So no, that's the toggler. Let's see. Class collapse. Is that supposed to be collapse? Huh. Why did that toggle? That's oh, I think I know maybe what that was. So I didn't see this before. Okay. Something is up with the oh no, that was there. Let's see what happens if we click it. Boy, that is odd. I'm wondering if it has something to do with a media query firing or something. No? That's an odd one. That's a strange bug.
Oh, is that what you want?
Yup.
Because that's how you get ants.
Yay.
We've got bugs. We have bugs, and I don't know where they're coming from. So if I remove that class, then it looks fine, which is kind of baffling me. Oh, it disappeared again. So it's in it. Something is toggling this collapse class, and we don't really want it or need it. What? Every other one, it seems. Why would it do that? Huh. That's some strange behavior. Let's see. The warnings are gone. I don't know what that was all about either. Oh, there it goes. Failed to parse source maps. That's fine. We're not using the source maps really for anything. So the source maps are just, it looks fine now. If I switch, let's switch back. Boy, that is so strange. It could be something, well, it doesn't do it with when I toggle back to light mode and inspect the page. I have a feeling something's happening to the render tree, And I didn't see this when I built it before, and I've done this. We actually do this, so we could see this in the wild, actually. Let's go to tellerk.com and go to demos. And this is one of the first pieces of code that I wrote for Blazor. It is. This is the very first JavaScript interop code I ever wrote, and it's still in production. You see this up here? You see that? We've got this in production, and we can do theme swaps right here. When we trade our themes for the UI components here. So I'm not sure. I've never seen this before. Yeah, that's interesting. Let's stop doing it. You guys see this? Stop doing it. All right. Was it what? Exactly. I don't even have a meme for this one. Like, wow. I'm stumped. Yeah. We'll do that again.
Oh, is that what you want?
Yup.
Because that's how you get ants.
That's how you get ants, folks. Is it something to do with this being open? You know what? This is one of the best kind of bugs to have because it fixed itself. Ship it. It's Friday. Ship it. Ship it to production, guys. Let's reload. Oh, it's back. This is fun. What is this? How do you even? What is going on today? So all I did is refresh the page. I should have never refreshed and just assumed that it was back and it worked. Oh, ouch. Something broke. I emptied cache and hard reload. It came back and I've got a 404. It cannot find light CSS. Good Lord. Oh, maybe it's up here. Yeah, that still says bootstrap. Something is something is really weird about this. Let's do this. Let's do the good old-fashioned IT like turn it off and on again. So let's clean the solution. We'll clean it completely. Let's close our tabs. We'll go back to our IDE and we will do a full build. Let's run with debugging. That sometimes flushes things out. Yeah, ask customers just to never leave the page. Oh man. This is fun though. Makes for an interesting show. Oh, Jesus. I think that's the most silence I've had on the on the stream so far. I'm at a loss. I don't know what the hell's going on. This is a fun one. Yeah, this is something different. It just totally that it's there, but it's not showing anywhere. I wonder. All right, let's think through this. Maybe I have a hunch. What this might be. I'm still, yeah, it's just a malfunction. Let's take that off of there. What it may be, let's be realistic about this. It could be an order of operations problem. So when we initially load the page, let's look at the initial state. I have a hunch. Let's try it. All right. Everything's fine. Let's zoom in, enhance. Kind Come on, zoom tool. Play nice. All right. So when we initially load the page, this may be a bug in my code. The order of our CSS files is like this. So light CSS is here. Okay. This is going to get replaced. When we replace it, it gets appended here. So watch for that. We'll toggle. Notice the new element displays here. So this link was initially here. Okay. So what that could be an issue with, and let's check. Let's drag this. I don't know if this works with Chrome DevTools, but we'll try. I know I can rearrange things. Oh, there it is. Look at that. I found the bug. I found it. That's obviously that's where it was the whole time. Yeah, that had me for a minute. That had me for a minute. And how? I know it's Friday, guys, but really we only have 7 viewers witnessing this craziness. So our JS code is going to go in and it's going to rip this link file out of here like this, and it's going to replace it down here. It changes the order in which the CSS files are in the head of the document. So instead of it declaring light CSS and then site CSS, what ends up happening is it goes site CSS, then light or dark CSS, and something in the style sheet overrides where it didn't override before. So this is the blessing of cascading style sheets helping us out here and doing what they're supposed to do, but because I wasn't thinking about the order in which these links appear, then things just broke. So we either need to replace this in the same spot or do a little bit of trickery. Now, normally in my applications, I only have one CSS file because I use a SAS pipeline and everything gets built out through SAS. So what we can do is a little cheap version of that. I'm going to go into site CSS. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep site CSS in the project. We're going to remove it. So site CSS always has to come at the end of the file. So this needs to be always at the end. And what we're going to do is remove it from here, and we're going to make it part of light and dark CSS. So we're only toggling that file, but site CSS is always included in it at the end. Now, let me think through for a minute how we can do that. I can either take these styles and paste them in, or I can try to import like this. And that's how I did it in the other example. And that's why I had a bootstrap directory. So let's go ahead and add that back. Maybe that was a good idea. So we'll do a little bit of modification here. And I'm running, so I need to stop this from running. So we'll do a bootstrap folder. I'm going to move these files here. So this is going to be bootstrap-dark, bootstrap-light, and then we have our site CSS. We're going to keep that one. We're going to add 2 new files. Add new item, style sheet. We'll just add that. We'll open it back up in a second. This one is going to be called light. And then we will just copy and paste it and call it dark. So there's our light and dark again. They have nothing in them. Let's look at Site CSS. So what Site CSS does is it uses this import URL format here. This actually will help what we're doing. So we'll do import URL. We'll do bootstrap. And then we want light CSS. And then, let's see. Can't remember if there was a semicolon at the end or not. There is. We'll duplicate that. And we will put in Site CSS here. So it's kind of like building up just a little dependency tree. And then in dark CSS, and again, I normally use like a SAS pipeline for this. This is just an example though, and it'll work. That's all that matters. Does it compile? Works on my machine. There we go. This one needs to say dark CSS. So what effectively we're doing here is saying dark.css will include the bootstrap dark theme and the site CSS.css. Thanks, IntelliSense. And then on the light theme, same thing. It's going to include the bootstrap light theme and site CSS and keep the order correct for us. We can remove this from our files that are open. We should probably move that to the bottom of our index just so it's all always going to start the same way and be there. And now let's try that again. I think that's going to answer our problem. C# Fritz is partying. Sorry, I'm catching up on chat here. JavaScript is always the problem. That actually wasn't the problem. It wasn't really JavaScript. It was that was user error. I'll take that one. Sorry, but I'm taking that one all day. That was me not thinking about the order in which those themes were going to show up, or the links were going to show up. Love is blind. Are we doing a little song in here in the chat room? Heart Hadaway, I think it's called. As far as I know, Blazor WebAssembly there is a JIT compiler instead of AOT. They want to improve that. Yeah, so even though this is running in WebAssembly, it is running as a JIT compiled .NET runtime. So the runtime is MonoWASM, but our application is JIT inside of that. And they're looking at ways of having a build operation that will take some of our code, not all of our code, but some of our code over to WebAssembly. From what I understand, when you compile C# into WASM, it gets bigger file size. So you don't want to do that with everything because then you have a really big payload. So that is one of the concerns. But yeah, .NET 5, I think we'll see more around performance and stuff. So now we could toggle light theme, dark theme. There are some differences in like the size of the H tags in the two themes. So that's why you see like looks a little different. But for the most part, we have two themes. It's cool. Very cool. So dark. Other than that little hiccup, it was pretty easy.
This is like taking candy from a candy-hating baby.
I mean, what can I say? It's as easy as taking candy from a candy-hating baby. We can toggle the theme real easy. Now we have our light-dark theme. Quick click here to switch themes. Actually, this is backwards. So we are in the dark theme. We want to switch to the light theme. So I guess it's semantics. Maybe it's telling what theme we're already on, but you could configure that however you'd like. Let's see here. What else? Oh, one more thing I want to point out about this. So if I toggle my theme, let's go to dark mode. Notice I can go to other pages, and it's still. Oh, there we go. Yeah, we're not stashing anything into state. So the toggle button does get a little weird. I don't cover that in the book. The reason the theme stays and the button doesn't is because, again, everything in the app happens in the app tag. We've modified the head tag, which is outside of the render tree, and it's outside of the Blazor framework. So the state there is fine. As long as nothing goes in and changes it, it's going to stay the same. But the button part is inside the app, and we're not managing the state of the theme. So if I go to dark mode, this reads dark mode. We have a raid by Full Stack Live. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, my friend. One of the developers from the live code stream team. Thanks for the raid. I appreciate that. 11 folks coming on in. You guys were working on some Ruby, I think. Ruby is one of those languages that I enjoy, but I do not work with on a regular basis. I am living in the .NET world these days. It's a great language, though. It's a lot of fun. It's a good expressive language to work in. Really enjoyable. So we're working with Blazor. So this is WebAssembly, and we're able to write C# and .NET code and let all that stuff run in the browser without JavaScript. Oddly enough, today we're writing JavaScript in it. That probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you're here early on, so I will explain. So any web app that you build these days, except for Ruby, because that's going to be, if you're doing Rails, that's going to be server rendered. Any client-side SPA type application, though, works like this. So React and Angular both do this, and so does Blazor. It loads or hydrates into this app tag. So your entire application lives inside that app tag. The problem with that is those apps don't have access to the head, and with .NET having all of the code running inside of a runtime that is basically bound to this app tag, you have to call out to a JavaScript file and make it do work for you if you want to touch the head of the application. So what we did is wrote some code that goes in and toggles the link tag and lets us swap between the light and dark mode in the application. That's what we were up to. Ruby is something for grannies? That's not fair. I was born in 1970, no offense taken. I was born in the 70s, not 1970, but the 70s. And I'm offended. I'm greatly offended. You know. Let's see here. We've got our toggle button set up. It works for the most part. It's not very stateful, so it does kind of lose the text as we toggle around. It's kind of outside the scope of the subject of the book, so we're not gonna deal with that. We're just gonna leave it as is. You can call it a bug if you want, but I'm just gonna leave it alone. I'm used to building websites with MVC, so this is one of the differences to Blazor, is that the WASM file in your browser gets and consists of all the pages in your website. Yes, so it is a traditional SPA application. You could kind of see this in action if I go to another page, let's see. Let's try that again. Where is... It's not lighting it up for me. Maybe I need to be open in the main. There we go. That'll work. That'll get my point. So if you watch this content section here, you'll see that that's reloading. But if I look up here, this does not reload. So it's only reloading the content that's changed. And it does that through a very complex diffing algorithm. So it's only refreshing the content that is different from the last time you clicked on that button. And if we go to this example, you can see it here as well. If I click on this reverse button, only the UL items get reversed, and none of, like, it doesn't repaint the H3 or anything above. It only repaints the items in the list that are getting reversed. So yeah, it's very performant. It's very cool stuff. It's quite a bit different from MVC though. MVC, you can't do client side in MVC without JavaScript. That's the problem. This is actually doing client side sans JavaScript. So this is one language to rule them all, unless you need to do something outside. Like today, we are on a little bit of a sidebar and showing how JavaScript can actually help your application, even though it's not something that you need all the time. And one of the things that it can do, and this is a good topic for the next subject here, or subject for the next topic. I don't know how that works, but this is a new conversation that kind of segues from the last one. So we are in C#. Ragath, thanks for the follow. So since we are in C# and we are not interested as developers in Blazor to be writing JavaScript, this next section is really handy because it lets developers that want to write some JavaScript do that and patch in some functionality that is not inside of the framework. And then we can use a C# API to access JavaScript without knowing or caring that we're actually using JavaScript. If that makes sense. So let's do that next. So the next, what do you call it? The next exercise is going to be adding geolocation to our application. So how do we add geolocation? Well, what we would want to do, the ideal thing would be to come into our app. Let's go to the index page. The ideal thing would be to just start a code block and somehow say, give me the, say, geolocation maybe, .get location or something like that. That's what we'd want. There isn't an API in C# to do that though. So we have to rely on JavaScript to do that. What's cool is we can build that. We can publish that package to the interwebs, and then somebody else can download it and not care that it's built with JavaScript, and then just write that pseudocode that I just put there and say in C#, geolocation, give me the geolocation, and get that information from the browser. So that's what we're going to build next. We're gonna do some round trip calls between C# and JavaScript, and to do that, we're going to build a geolocation API. Sound like fun? We got about an hour, and that's what we're going to do. So first things first, we saw how the basics of JavaScript interop worked initially. The next thing we want to do is talk about geolocation and put that in the context of this JavaScript interop. So geolocation API. We're going to talk about JavaScript here. Geolocation API. Mozilla MDN Web Docs is the best documentation for this stuff. that you're going to find. W3C is pretty good. This is better, in my opinion. So the basic concept here is we have these interfaces, okay? We have geolocation, geolocation position, coordinates, error, and then the API, which is navigator.geolocation. Let's see. I don't know if we can do this easy, but we'll try. Let's just pull up a console, and we can say navigator.geolocation, and you can see there's the API right here. This is the geolocation object, and we have get current position is a function off of that geolocation. Do I have VODS? I can't see it on my phone. What's VODS? Not sure what we're talking about there. Videos on demand? I don't know what that means. So video on demand. If it's something I have to add, then I haven't added it, but this is for the most part just a normal Twitch stream. So if it's part of the normal Twitch platform, then yes. To watch the recording, you should be able to watch recordings, just not of the current show that's running now. There should be a back catalog though. There's also, check in settings. I'll have to do that. So maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe it's a feature that I didn't have when I first started. But thanks for the heads up. I'll have to check that out. So I can do watch position. We're not going to get into watch position today. It's a little bit too complex for this demo. What we're going to do is say get current position. And then let's see what happens there. We need to give it a callback. So to run this geolocation, we have to give it a callback, and it's going to be something like this. It's going to be success is position, and then we're going to work with the position. We're going to get geo Latin long out of the position object here. Don't know how good my coding skills are going to hold up inside of this this little DevTools console, but I think we can do something like this: success callback, and we'll throw in a position and say that position, let's see, I'm losing it. Position dot, I don't know if I can get that to work there. I will try real quick. We should be able to do position dot coordinates dot latitude, something like that. We will see this working inside of some code here, but I was just trying to show where this API is surfaced at. And we could do this. I don't like the way that pasted in. All right, so position dot coordinates dot latitude. Let's just see if it writes back a value undefined. Ah, there we go. Cool. It at least invoked it. So this is what I wanted to show. So if I run navigator.geolocation get current position, it's asking for a callback. I'm trying to inspect the latitude coordinate, and it's asking me, do I want to allow the browser, or this application that's in the browser, to access my location? It wants to know, it says localhost wants to know your location. I'm going to hit allow. This is already done and gone. I don't think this will, and I'm not doing this quite right. So let's look at the full example now that we know where I block all those pop-ups. You never let anybody know where your location is. That's a shame. How are people supposed to find you? How is Big Brother supposed to spy on you if you block pop-ups? I mean, come on. All right. We need to write some simple JavaScript here. So we're going to go back to our app. For those that are just starting to follow us here, this is Blazor. It's running .NET, and we're patching in some JavaScript code through the interop. The code that I'm writing is coming from a book that I wrote. The book is free. If you're interested in learning any of this, just scroll down and you'll see a banner. This is free ebook. Just go there and you can grab it. So we need a JavaScript file, and we're going to call it, and I want to name these exactly like the book says so people can follow along very easily. And let me see what I named it in here. Geolocation.js. Sounds good to me. Naming things is hard. It's one of the hardest things that we do in development, just naming things. So geolocation.js is what we're going to name this one. And we will kind of stub this out a little bit. The first thing we're going to do is check and see if geolocation is a thing. Like, can this device, this browser that's on this device, access our location? And a really simple way to do that is just see if this navigator.geolocation exists. And if it is, we'll return true. If it does not, we will return false. There is a reason that it's set up this way. I won't go into why. You can get other things back if you do not say true and false here. We'll just say that. And off by one errors, absolutely. Let's see here. So we can invoke this if we want to and just see if geolocation exists. That's a good sanity check to see if our JavaScript is working. So what we'll do is we'll come in to our head of our document again. And I'll put this right below our theme chooser. So we've got JS, geolocation.js is going to be our next JavaScript that we're writing. And just checking the path. Yep, we're good with the path. And then we need a .NET API to wrap around this JavaScript function. And this will give us our API surface in .NET. So I'm going to go into my app, in the root of it. This isn't like super best practices or anything. I'm just going to add it right straight to the root. We'll add a class. We'll call it geolocation.cs. And I can replace that class name. There we go. And it is going to look for an IJS runtime, and it's going to get that from dependency injection. So I need to bring in my namespace, control period in Visual Studio will give me that using statement. And then that is all good. So what I have is a backing variable called JS. And then I'm going to call IJS runtime when I new up a geolocation and pass the JavaScript runtime in to this geolocation API so it can make use of JavaScript. We're going to be writing some functions that are going to call out to JavaScript in here. Now we want to call back into JavaScript through our API and return a value so we're going to call has geolocation feature. This is going to go look for that function. Here, let me separate this into two lines so it's a little bit easier to see, because I'm going to pull up, I'll do this all on one screen again, side by side. Scoot that over a little bit more. So here's how this is going to work. We're going to call from C# has geolocation feature. That is our C# API call. It is going to hand that off to JavaScript through invoke async. It's expecting a true or false back. It's going to say, look for the scope, Blazor geolocation in JavaScript, and execute the function has geolocation feature. So if I look up in here on window dot, there's my scope. There's Blazor geolocation. Here's my function. that we're calling right there. This returns back true or false. This goes back here and gets assigned to this value task. Okay. Questions on Ragath WOW. Trying to think if I'm saying that right. World of Warcraft, I imagine, is the WoW back end of it. Are there any limitations regarding Blazor compared to regular ASP.NET Core MVC? That is a huge question, actually. So there is a lot of differences. Limitations is not the word I would use. I would say trade-offs. So with ASP.NET Core MVC, you are 100% of the time rendering things on the server, sending HTML pages down, and using JavaScript to augment those pages. So you're directly manipulating the DOM at that point. So you're using something like jQuery probably, or Vue. You could possibly use React. If you're using something like React or Angular, then you're completely sidebarring the MVC, the V part of MVC. You might as well just do Web API at that point. But if you're strictly doing like web pages in jQuery, that is fine. Blazor is just different. So Blazor lets you write client-side code that runs on the client. That is C# code running in a special .NET runtime that is built for WebAssembly. So it is a SPA application, much like Angular or React is. So they're completely different beasts. I wouldn't say there's limitations necessarily. You can also run Blazor server-side and have all of the benefits that ASP.NET MVC has with all of the benefits that Blazor has. So you get the best of both worlds. The trade-off or limitation there would be you always have to be connected. You can't ever have a disconnected environment when you're doing that. So let's see. After a lot of disappointment, so full stack life, I let my WoW subscription lapse. Oh, so I'm not a WoW player. I played the old school game back in the day. I never played the new one. It looks like a lot of fun. I have so many games I want to play, and I have time for none of them. I love games, and I don't have time for any of them. It's sad. I love some Counter-Strike, though. I wish I could have time for it. I think I'm going to go back and replay the BioShock Remastered Edition, too, if I get time for that. So y'all have your WoW conversations. I'm going to get back to coding here. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves, though. Talk amongst yourselves. It's all good. That's what we're here for. We're a community. We do coding and nerdy things together. All right, so we are going to do this operation here that I just outlined, and we're going to get back a true or false from our browser, and we're going to get back a true here. I don't have any way. We might be able to force it to throw a false at us. That would be for like a device that doesn't have a geolocation feature in the browser's detecting that it's turned off, or that API isn't available. Most likely you're not going to run into that scenario with Blazor. If your browser can run this, if your browser can run Blazor, that's a mouthful. If your browser can run Blazor, then most likely it supports geolocation. So this is kind of a moot point here, but it's an exercise just to show that we can do a quick call into JavaScript and get a value back. So that's more the exercise than anything, is just making sure that we can do this operation. So we're going to set this up with a little if statement, and let's build a page for this. I think it started hacking away at the index page. Let's take that out of there. Let's return that to normal. Let's leave the theme chooser on there, and we'll add a page. Pages in Blazor are components, so we'll do add new component. We'll call this geolocation example. Because if I called it geolocation, there might be a conflict with the class name. I'm just going to put the word example behind it, just so it's a little safer. Let's make sure I've highlighted all of the code, so I don't have to scramble for errors here. And we'll paste this in, and I'll explain what's going on. And that pasted in kind of wonky. Let's get that fixed up. So we've got a couple directives in the wrong place. Geolocation with a capital L in here. Let's see what the book is doing. I thought I corrected most of these. I had geolocation as a capital L. Yeah, that's unfortunate. So this should be a lowercase l. A little typo there. Might have to go edit the book again and fix that. Geolocation is one word. Who knew? Still a little tidying up with the camel casing here. So we have a geolocation API we're going to exercise, and if geolocation is available, we're just going to display a message on the screen that says, yes, we have access to the API. And once I have this all up, we can walk through the code and explain all what it's doing. And why am I getting using directive is unnecessary? All right, we'll take it out. Cool. All right. Yeah, I'm breaking stuff again, Chris. That's what I do. It's all good, though.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
It's all
You're not
fine.
really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
You wouldn't understand, man. It's all good. Everything is good. All right. So we're gonna new up but capture a JS runtime from our DI or dependency injection system. So our application already has a instance of this JavaScript runtime, and we're gonna just get one of those from the dependency injection container. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna just do some simple markup here. Oh, we don't want that. We want, I'll just call it geo. Need to get a good page route so we can navigate to this example. And then we'll say, if it has geolocation, then print this message of browser has geolocation. And then we have a flag that we're setting. And when the page initializes, then I'm going to go ahead and check if the geolocation is there. To do that, I'm going to call up a brand new geolocation object and hand it off the JavaScript runtime. And it's going to take that JavaScript runtime and it's going to call has geolocation feature, which will then go to JavaScript and execute a JavaScript function and pass me back a true or false. That will set this flag, which will enable my message or disable my message. To ensure that that gets updated, we're going to call StateHasChanged, because what will happen is if I don't call StateHasChanged, I'll get a message back from JavaScript. It'll set the flag will toggle, but this message won't change because the component doesn't know that a JavaScript callback has executed. So we need to tell Blazor that something has updated in this component. So we'll call StateHasChanged at the very end. Let's Control F5. If I've done everything correct, then it should work when I go to /geo, browser has geolocation. Now, I know this works, and I'm validating that I can call out the JavaScript because if I look, I have a bool value here. And when we initialize a bool value, what value does it initialize as? If I do not set something, it is going to initialize as false. In order for this thing to say browser has geolocation, something has had to have toggled that false to a true. And the only way that could have happened is if this function ran successfully and asked the browser if it has geolocation capabilities. Okay, so I know for a fact that that JavaScript function has called and returned back a value.
This is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
Isn't it though? Isn't it? We can do a lot of cool stuff with this now. All right, so Blazor geolocation has geolocation feature, is successful. Let's look at the next thing that we want to do. I've already dismissed this dialog, so we're not going to see that again unless I blew out my cache. This is some pseudocode here. This is what I'm going to get back from my browser when I call the get geolocation function from JavaScript. So let's paste this in. I'll paste it into the JavaScript section here. This is not a real thing. It's just kind of a pseudo markup of what we get back. This is like the JSON that comes back from the geolocation service. So we can take a look at what this is. Maybe I should comment this out in a sec. But when we do this next function call, we're going to be writing the patchwork for, where is it? I want to scroll down to the right area here. Yeah, we're going to call this function get current position. And when we call get current position, see if I still have my docs up here. We're calling geolocation get current position. Whoops. Where is that function at? Get current position. And when I do that, it returns back a geolocation position object, and it also gets back a timestamp. So what that geolocation position object looks like, or maybe it includes the timestamp. It includes coordinates. So it has a geolocation coordinates object inside of the position object. So this would be like position dot coordinates like that, and then it has dot latitude position dot position dot coordinates dot longitude. Those are all properties that we can access through this object, and it also has a timestamp. The timestamp here is really important, and so is this data structure, because the timestamp, what is that, right? What is that number? So if we look at the API, the number is, let's see if we can find it in the docs. It is going to be, the timestamp is, I can't remember in the specs where this is at. Position, let's see if position has the definition for it. There it is, timestamp. Returns a DOM timestamp representing the time, and this is one of those, I can't remember the encoding, what that is. It's like a Unix timestamp encoded thing. There is not a data type in .NET that we can directly map that to. So here's the deal. When we're working with JavaScript Interop, when we return an object from JavaScript to .NET, it has to be JSON serializable. Time since 1970 in seconds. Yeah, is that, see, this is how bad it is. I don't know if you're trolling, joking, or if that's truth. Like, I honestly don't remember what the heck this timestamp is in. It's like a Unix timestamp thing. But there's a way to fix this. So it's important to be aware of it. I write about it in the book. We need to be able to map that to .NET. So the first thing we're going to do is create a function that's going to create a serializable version of the data that we're going to pass. So let's do that. So basically, we have a function it's going to take an argument. And I'm copy and pasting all this from the book as we go. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take E, which is our position object that's coming out of the API call in JavaScript. And then we're going to run it through a JSON object. We're going to say, give me a new object that's got a field called, a property called coords or coordinates, latitude, longitude, properties on that. And then we'll go ahead and map e.coordinates.latitude, e.coordinates.longitude, and timestamp. And when we do timestamp, we'll call a new date time of timestamp. Since we're still in JavaScript, at this point, JavaScript has a function that will convert timestamp into a date time that is mappable to a date time in .NET. Okay, so that will create a valid JSON object that will serialize back into the .NET world. Cool. So that's what toSerializable does, and that's a function that we have access to now. So it's going to take this and make sense of it. I will comment that out because it's not real code. So we've got get current position. This is just I'm repeating the documentation. It shows the interface from the official w3.org specifications. So this is what it would you would look at if you were interested in writing some really serious interop code, is looking at what is the interface that the W3C has set up, and then you'd probably want to look also at something like the Mozilla website because their docs are just a little bit better and they spell things out how they implemented it, and they also give examples. It's in milliseconds, yeah, because seconds would be it's, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, it's just a big number. So it's you really have to like look at the docs and go, okay, I need to map this to something else. How do I do that? That date function will take it and tell you what that that time span means. It is since January 1st, 1970. Wow. So today I learned, like, I kind of knew what it was, but I didn't really know the facts behind it. So thank you. Appreciate that. So it is the time in milliseconds since the birth of the computer, I guess. Unix time. Because nothing existed before. This is like getting into religion territory. All right. So this is an example they have. I wish I could get... that just displays the lat long. I wish I had a JSON representation of this because I could do something fun with that. Let me see if there's any examples in here. The position object. This is what it looks like. We've kind of been through this, but I just want an explicit, like, I don't want to show my location again. Oh, well. So the way we use this is we call navigator.geolocation get current position, and we're going to pass it a success or failure callback. So I lost my ebook. Let's get the ebook back. And let's see, history. Earlier today, ebook. There we go. So get our ebook back. Let's look at the contents. JavaScript interop. All right. So we need to write this function that gives us back this data. And first we need to have a .NET representation of the data. So we'll create that next. I think in the book I do put this in a folder and kind of organize things a little better than I have here. Let's double check that. Excuse me while I roam around inside the code for a second. Yeah. That was probably why I had the namespace in there earlier. Let's do that. Let's create, let's add a folder. Call it geolocation. I'm going to move my object in there. Yes. Public class geolocation. We'll go ahead and give it a namespace because we're going to need, here, we'll do these all in one file because that's the way I want to do it. No real good reason, just to make it simple, I guess. So we can look at it all in one place. So we'll stub this out. So we've got a position options. So this is actually a good example of passing data into .NET. So yeah, would that be a negative number then, Ragath? Would that be like negative time span? So we've got position options. This is going to be something we can pass in to modify the data that we get back from the geolocation API. It's all documented in the MDN site if you want to look at it. I won't go over it in great detail here. We need to also have a coordinates file or class. So we'll create a coordinates class. Let's see if I can copy all this at once. Boom. Okay. Coords is easy. It's latitude, longitude. Position is just the parent object that contains the coordinates and the date time. So a position has coordinates and a date time. Coordinates has a latitude and a longitude. The options are what we feed JavaScript. Coordinates and position are what we get back from JavaScript. There's also one more class that we need to account for, and that is the position error. So we've got an error code that can come back, and we can fit that into an enumerator. So we can say either the position was denied, permission was denied, the position was unavailable, so maybe you're in a tunnel, or maybe there was a timeout. So maybe we tried to get it, but we just couldn't get data back fast enough. And that's where the options come in handy, is we can set that timeout. We can set that value. So now we have everything to interop with the JavaScript side of things. We have an object we can pass in, and we have an object we can get back and serialize back. And we've taken the steps to make sure that our data matches up. And if we look at this, and again, I'll zoom in for a little drawing, we're going to get back coordinates that has a latitude and a longitude, and we're going to get back a timestamp that is a date time format because of this mapping that we did here, because we can't use timestamp in .NET. It will fail. We can get it back as a string, and then you could write code if you wanted to try to figure out how to manipulate that back into a .NET similar .NET value. This is really going to be your easiest option. Trust me. Just timestamp this thing as a new date, and then we have something that passes one-to-one across the wire. So we're able to do that. If anything goes wrong with this, then we have a position error that we can accept as well, which is actually just an integer value, and our framework is smart enough to map that to an enumerator. So we're good there. Thanks for the follow, Ramanju. Hope I said that right. Appreciate you joining the show, following. If anybody's just joining, we're building a JavaScript interop layer for geolocation, so we can talk to JavaScript code through Blazor. So back in my main geolocation class, I've got has geolocation feature. I'm going to add some new functionality here. And let's see, my clipboard didn't pick up the right thing. Let me go back and try that again. Copy and paste. And I don't need, let's see, I don't need that or that. We'll take that. All right, so I'm going to put an action here. And I have an action which is basically a delegate. So I have a delegate called get on position or on get position, and it's gonna give, or we're gonna pass in a position to the delegate. The next function here has a JS invocable attribute on it. So this is going to allow JavaScript to invoke a method on C#. So this makes our method available outside of our application and exposes it to the interop layer. We're going to call this raise get position. So we're going to call the JavaScript and we're going to say get us a position. JavaScript is going to call back and raise this event called raise on position, which is going to kick off our action. So it's kind of a pipeline that we're setting up to send and receive messages back and forth. We also are going to do an error. I'll put this up at the top as well because this might fail. So we're going to need a fail mechanism here. So if when JavaScript receives a message back from the geolocation API, it will call raise get position, which will trigger on get position, and it will only invoke it if we have assigned a delegate to handle it. And in the same fashion, if there's an error, we're going to take the error that JavaScript gives us and invoke the delegate, if there is one, to handle the error. The reason we have to pass this chain of command around is because we need a function, a named function that is decorated with JS invocable that JavaScript knows is there. So we need a static named function that JavaScript is aware of and it can invoke. We need to then allow the API to be defined by the consumer and let them decide how they want to handle what happens when that function gets triggered. That's why we have the delegate in place. So JavaScript raises this, which then invokes the user-defined thing and passes it a value. Raggeth is the oracle of Unix time. Thanks for the fun conversation in the chat room. I appreciate it. So fun fact, the maximum number for the Unix time will be reached January 2038, which means that all 32-bit computers will stop working. This is known as the year 2038 problem. I know you're just Googling, but hey, it's having fun. Yeah, 2038, we're not going to make it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Sorry, dark humor. 2020 has just been,
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
2020 in a nutshell. All right. All right, we have our success and our fail paths set up. So a lot of this stuff is in the book, and I know I'm kind of going through it fast. It does require a little read-ahead knowledge of the geolocation API in JavaScript. So this would be kind of the workflow that you would have, but you'd have to read the JavaScript API and understand the moving pieces before you'd come up with this code. I tried to kind of follow that in the book. So I'm not just like winging it, and this is stuff that I'm just coming up with off the hip. This is something I had to research beforehand. So don't feel like I just know everything, and this is just code that's coming naturally to me. I mean, I've done this a few times and researched it for the book and for my own kind of knowledge and stuff already. So this isn't like public, like, I mean, it is public knowledge, but I mean, it's not like intuition or anything crazy like that. It requires a little research before you can start gluing these things together. And then finally, and Chris, I see your message there. Yeah, I will be rating Guy after the stream here, and it will be pretty soon. I'm almost done here. As soon as we get this geolocation thing wired up, we will go ahead and raid Guy. Guy is awesome, so I would tell everybody to stick around just so we can raid Guy and say hello to him. Good friend, amazing person. Somebody I miss hanging out with dearly because of all the events that have been canceled. I can't go hang out with my friend Guy, so we'll go hang out with him online. So we've got this value task called get current position, and we've got an action which we've defined up here. This is going to be the user-defined action called onSuccess, and our error, which we're calling onError, and our position options. So what we're going to do is when we call getCurrentPosition, just like the JavaScript API is outlined, we're going to have a success and a failure callback. We'll go ahead and populate these actions with the parameter that we pass. So we're going to pass these into our function. So this is a higher order function. We're going to pass in these two functions that we're delegating to. And then we're going to call out to JavaScript. And again, this is, we haven't written this code yet. It will hang off of this scope here, Blazor Geolocation. And then we'll call a method that we haven't written called getCurrentPosition. We're going to pass a reference to this. So what we have here is geolocation. We're going to pass a reference to the instance of this class down to JavaScript. Since we have these JS invocable attributes on here, these directives on here, it is going to be able to, when I say it, I mean JavaScript. With this reference, it will be able to invoke those methods. Raise on position, raise on position error. That's where that's coming from. So we're going to pass that into JavaScript so it has knowledge of those functions. Then we're going to pass in the position options so it can set the values on those. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and write that JavaScript code. It's a little bit less complex. And we are going to, let's see here. This is hard to copy because it's between two lines. I apologize for anybody who's trying to do this from the book. I'm going to paste it down here just to make sure, yeah, there we go. I can splice it back up into the place it belongs. So we'll remove that set of curly braces and make sure I get this right. That ending semicolon, and then I can cut this and glue it up here like that. So I've got two serialize, and then another function I've got is called getCurrentPosition. Scoot this over. I've got getCurrentPosition, And matching the stuff that I just showed on the left-hand side, this geolocation reference is a reference to the instance of my geolocation class that has the two callback functions on it, and then our options. So we're passing those from C# into JavaScript. That's where they come in. We're going to set up a delegate called onSuccess, which will then return when we return, we're going to call get, we're going to call geolocation ref, this is the .NET class. We're going to invoke the method that has the attribute, the JS invocable attribute. Remember, that's called on position, get on position. So if we scoot back over, this is calling this function here, and it's going to hand back the serialized version of the result. So when onSuccess gets triggered, it's passing result in, it's getting that from the API, and it's handing it back up to C# through a serialized function, and then it's calling get raise on get position. The serialized object comes back in, we handle it with our own code. See you later, Chris. We'll see you guys in probably about 15 minutes. The error works the same way. We're going to invoke that method, pass back the error code. The error code gets translated into a enumerable, or an enumerator. Then finally, these are just functions. They don't get executed. These are just callbacks. So we're setting up two delegates here, onSuccess and onError. Finally, when we call get position, what's going to happen is delegate gets defined, delegate gets defined, navigator.geolocation get position gets called, passes in the onSuccess delegate, passes in the onError delegate, passes in the options. A promise exists here. This is a promise. When we call get geo, it actually tells us here in the IntelliSense that we are going to get back, let's see, oh, it doesn't actually have the return value in there. It's going to be a promise, and what it's going to do is, if it's successful, it will call the onSuccess callback. So it will call it, passing in the result, and then triggering our C# code with the result. If it's an error, it's going to call the C# code with the result, pass and trigger that C# code. So that's how that's going to work. It's actually very simple code here. We're just creating two delegates, just like we are on the other side. This kind of matches up line for line. It's kind of on parity here. Let's zoom in and out real quick. We've got the delegate here that's calling this one, and then the delegate here that's calling an error. Those two things get, those two paths get called from the get current position. So one of these two things is going to get executed depending on if it was a success or a fail, and it's going to give us the data that we need to work with. So now that we have this get current position function, and it has these two success or fail delegates available, we can do whatever we want with that data in our app. So I'm going to fix this. I broke it when I moved things around. We need a using geolocation statement here just to satisfy that. Then we need to wire things up in our view. So we'll go look at the final code here, and we'll talk about how that all works. I'm going to replace everything in the page, even after I just fixed it there. And this is geo, and we have a typo. So geolocation, this didn't paste in very well again. We'll try to clean it up the best we can. And we'll run through everything that's going to happen one more time New geolocation, typo. And there's a couple lines here that are still struggling to find a home. There we go. One more there, one more. And again, StateHasChanged is in there, and we are all good. So let's start at the code level. Still a couple lines floating around in here. This is the usage part of the API. We've defined all the bits. We've got the JavaScript side. We've got the C# side. They marry up, being able to call each other and pass data around. Go ahead and move that off for now. So here's what's going to happen. We come into our component. We've got an empty position and an empty error. These are essentially null values. We've got a flag that defines whether we can do geolocation or not. We've got a delegate called onSuccess. And again, you're going to see that pattern kind of keep following through. We've got our success and our error path. So our success path says, on success, we're going to go ahead and accept a parameter of position. So the argument comes in, and then if we get that, we're just going to go ahead and push that off to our field. That's all we're going to do is set the value. Then we'll call StateHasChanged to tell the component that something has changed. We need to re-render. Same thing for error. If there's an error, we'll pass the error up to the field so it can be displayed. We'll call StateHasChanged changed so it does get displayed. This whole thing gets put in motion by on-after-render async. So the first time this component renders, we can see on first render, it will new up a geolocation, giving it the JavaScript runtime. We're going to set whether it has geolocation or not. Go ahead and call, does it have a geolocation feature? Go ahead and set the flag, update the view. Next thing it's going to do is say, let's new up some options. These are our geolocation position options that JavaScript needs to execute that function. We're going to disable high accuracy. You can look these up and see what they do. We're going to set the timeout to 200 milliseconds, and we're going to give it a maximum age of 0. Again, you can look that up. Off the top of my head, I think it's something like has something to do with the frequency that the geolocation sensor is updated. We'll set that at 0 so we immediately get an update. If it's higher, I think you can get nothing back. I can't remember. There's some meaning behind that one. I think it's in the book. I'm getting pressed for time, so I want to look that up right just now. But what is ultimately important here is we're going to await. Notice I'm not passing anything here. I'm not saying var x equals await. I'm not doing that. There's a reason for that. So I'm going to await, and I'm going to say geolocation get current position, but I'm going to pass it the on success and the on error delegates, as well as the options. So what that does is it's handing off responsibility to on success and on error. That's why I'm not setting a value here, because it's getting set in those callbacks. So now it's going to say, tell current position, get current position, that if there's a successful geolocation result, to invoke this function. If there's an error, invoke that function. So then we can go back and say, well, if it was successful, we're going to just put that value in here. Then we could look at our view and say, what's going to happen here? So we have, if there's geolocation, we'll signal that it's available. If the position isn't null, then just write out the coordinates. Current position is position.coordinates.latitude, position coordinates.longitude, and the timestamp was reported. Oh, there's a typo. Position. Did I just do it again? Position reported at and then the timestamp is going to get written out there. So since if there's an error, then this will never get set, and it will be null. So that's where our null check is twice as handy. So it's going to, on the initial load, it won't fail, and on an error, it won't fail. It's always going to be null unless there was a positive result. Same with the switch statement. We're going to trap that error. If there's an error, we'll display a paragraph that says permission denied. That permission denied is just like I think it was Ragath said, he turns off all of the notifications. So if somebody gets this pop-up right here, it's in the book. If somebody gets this pop-up and they smash that block button, they're going to cause that error of permission denied. That's where that's going to come from. Position unavailable. If you're going through a tunnel, you're in a bunker underneath the ground somewhere, or maybe you just have really bad internet. That's where that's going to come from. Timeout is kind of in between here. It's not position unavailable. It just never returned a result. So it made the call, but it never came back. Position unavailable is it made the call, it came back with nothing. Okay. Those are our error scenarios. So all these things should work. Famous last words. Let's give it a run. See what we get. I know that was a long bit of coding without getting to see the steps of compiling and watching something run. I like to see immediate results myself, but it is what it is. Thanks for the subscription, Evan Weeks. Welcome back to the show. Nice to see you again. And thanks for the sub. Appreciate that. Twitch Prime subscriber. Very nice. And look what we have here. In case you want to know where I live. I mean, it's on the stream now. Can't stop anybody from seeing that. So, hello world. This browser has geolocation. We made a call out to JavaScript. We passed out some parameters, and it sent us back the latitude and longitude of my browser, where that machine currently sits. And it reported that position on 4/3 at 6:13 p.m. in the afternoon. So we successfully added a brand new feature to Blazor that did not exist through patching in some JavaScript interop code. Very cool stuff. It's in the book. If you don't have the book, scroll down. It's free. Click the link. You can get that book at no cost. That is fully sponsored by Telerik Progress, brand of Progress. So they let me work on this, and it's sponsored and free for you. So go ahead and grab that. Now, I'll show you one more cool thing, and then we'll go raid Guy and see what he's up to. Guy is amazing. Please stick around. I'm going to right-click here. I'm going to do inspect. And I'm trying to remember where this is at. It may be in application or it's in network. But what we can do in here, if you want to have fun with this, we'll hit F1. Geolocations. You can actually spoof your location. If you want to come in here and say, I'm in London, there's a drop-down box that these go to. I'm trying to remember where it's at. Any Chrome debugging experts in here remember where that's at? So what you can do is, it's in here somewhere. You can set your actual location, and then you can see that geolocation API get exercised. So I can't remember where it is off the top of my head, but you can come into Chrome DevTools, and somewhere in here there is a drop-down list. Let's try docking it horizontally. Theme preference, emulation. Let's see. Devices? Nope. I'm drawing a blank. It is in here. There's a place where you can grab a drop down there. Oh, thank you, Curious Drive. Setting your geolocation is under, I just can't remember where the tab is. They've moved it a few times. So it's under console sensors. I don't see sensors. High network. Three dots. More tools. Of course. There we go. It's totally hidden. So thanks, Curious Drive. So we can come in here, and that you saw where those values came from a second ago. I can say I'm in San Francisco. The latitude for that is 37 by -122. And then if I come back to my application and refresh, you can see it changed to 37 by 122, -122. If you want to go through the exercise and do all this, you can copy that same pattern and use it for the watch geolocation. And what's really cool is you can set that up in a way that if you're moving, like if I were to come in here and say I just flew from San Francisco to London, I could change that value and you'll actually see it live update. You can actually wire that up with the watch functionality. So that's a next step that you could take the ebook if you wanted to run with that example. In case you want to hack on something for the weekend, look up the watch position function. So it'd be navigator.geolocation, and there's a watch mechanism to it. It's pretty much the same exact thing. There it is, watch position. So you can call geolocation.watch position, and it has a success and error. And what it will do is every time there's a successful position reported, it will trigger your on position, on success message and call state has changed and keep updating. So if you wanted to build an app where you're going for a run and it's logging like your path of where you ran, you could do that with Blazor. Pretty cool. All right. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the show today. We got a lot done. I'm gonna button this up and send it up to GitHub in a few minutes, and we'll do a little bit more of this sometime next week. Tune in to my channel, hit follow if you haven't already. A lot of people followed today, appreciate that. Subscribers as well. Evan, thanks for the sub, much appreciated. We're gonna go see one of my good friends, Guy Royce. He is over on his channel doing some stuff with Redis, and I beg you to stick around because Guy is awesome, and he's doing some really cool stuff these days, and he's just all around, no pun intended, a nice guy. So let's go raid him and say hello. So we're going to count down in 10 seconds here. Have a good weekend, everybody. Say hi to Guy for me. Cheer him on. And make sure you follow him as well. Take care.
The actions so they pop up on the screen when I know there's that service that does that. Figured it out yet. How's it going, Ed? I hope you're in here too. Let's do a look. Still looks. We do a hello. Okay, all right. My refactor without test did not hurt me yet.